They tell her to stay quiet, not with shouting, not with violence, with something colder, doubt. In a monastery carved into the hills of the Rhine Valley, a woman sits with ink-stained fingers and a mind that refuses to be silent. Outside her cell, the world belongs to men who define doctrine, interpret scripture, and shape what is considered truth. And yet, she writes, because she believes something that, in her time, is not rejected outright, but carefully examined. That what she experiences as visions carries meaning worth structuring, testing, and expressing. And over time, something remarkable happens. Her voice does not remain inside the monastery. It expands into the highest levels of church and empire. We are in the 12th century. The Holy Roman Empire is not a centralized nation. It is a shifting network of bishops, nobles, and monastic institutions. Power is distributed, negotiated, and reinforced through religious authority. And in that structure, monasteries are not secluded escapes from the world. They are centers of education, administration, and intellectual production. One of them is Dissy-Bordenberg, overlooking the Rhine Valley. Inside its stone walls, Hildegard of Bingen lives under monastic vows. She was placed here as a child and educated within the Benedictine tradition, trained in scripture, liturgy, music, and the intellectual discipline expected of monastic life. She is not untrained. She is formed by the system itself. And within that system, something begins to develop. It begins as something she later describes in her writings as visions, experienced as moments of heightened spiritual perception and theological insight. In her world, such experiences are not automatically dismissed. Within the church framework of the time, visionary claims could be examined, interpreted, and, if consistent with doctrine, recognized as legitimate. Hildegard does not immediately broadcast these experiences, not because they are forbidden, but because they require structure before they can be expressed publicly. So she works carefully, within the boundaries of monastic life. Manuscripts are copied, liturgy is performed, daily rhythms continue with precision, and gradually she begins documenting her visions with increasing clarity. At this stage, she is not acting in isolation. She is working within a network of support. A key figure in this process is Volmar, a monk who becomes her scribe and collaborator. He helps translate her accounts into written theological language, moving them from personal experience into structured discourse. This is where the situation shifts, not into secrecy, but into recognition. Because her writings do not remain confined to Dissy-Bordenberg, they begin circulating through ecclesiastical networks. And instead of being dismissed, they are reviewed, discussed, and in key moments, validated. Her most significant early work, Scivias, is eventually examined and approved at the Synod of Trier, 1147-1148, with papal endorsement following. This is critical. Her work is not simply tolerated, it is formally recognized within church authority. At the same time, her influence expands outward. She writes to bishops, abbots, and even emperors. Her correspondence is not passive. It is directive, advisory, and theological. She engages with power structures directly, not from outside them, but through them. Over time, she also begins preaching publicly, addressing both clerical and lay audiences, an exceptional role for a woman in her era, made possible through her recognized authority. Eventually, Hildegard makes a decisive institutional move. She founds her own convent at Rupertsberg. This is not retreat, it is construction. Rupertsberg becomes a deliberate extension of her authority, an independent monastic foundation where she can organize community life, oversee religious practice, and expand her intellectual and spiritual work with greater autonomy, while still operating within church oversight. Here, her influence grows structurally, not just spiritually. In Rupertsberg she composes music, develops theological works, writes on medicine and natural philosophy, and continues producing visionary texts, each part reinforcing her intellectual authority. From Rupertsberg, her reach extends further. She corresponds with bishops, abbots, emperors, and influential figures across Europe. These letters are not symbolic. They often carry theological instruction, moral correction, and direct counsel on matters of leadership and spiritual responsibility. Her writings circulate widely within monastic and clerical networks, read, copied, and discussed beyond her own community. What she produces is no longer local commentary. It becomes part of broader intellectual and religious discourse. She also continues to travel and, unusually for her time, is permitted to preach publicly at multiple locations, addressing both clergy and lay audiences. These journeys reinforce her authority, not as an exception outside the system, but as a recognized voice operating within it. Over time, her reputation solidifies as someone whose insights are taken seriously across different levels of church hierarchy, even when not universally agreed upon. What began as internal documentation of spiritual experience becomes a widely engaged body of theological, medical, and philosophical work that actively participates in shaping contemporary thought. Hildegard of Bingen does not fit into a narrow category: mystic, composer, writer, advisor, thinker. Each label captures only part of what she became. But what defines her most is not isolation or marginality. It is construction. She did not only endure the system, she learned how to operate within it and expand her authority. Her leadership reveals something structurally important. Authority in the medieval world was not only inherited, it could be built through consistency, output, and recognition. Leadership can grow inside institutions. Vision must be structured to be accepted. Persistence becomes influence, and creating institutional space like Rupertsberg can itself become an act of leadership. In the end, Hildegard leaves behind more than writings. She leaves behind a model of how authority can be formed from within a system rather than outside it. She is not just a visionary, she is a strategist building authority. If this story moved you, there are more like it on this channel. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.